Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my August and September marked as to read video. So if you've seen all of my videos basically about September, you know I was slumping massively, so as a result of that I wasn't watching that many booktube videos even because I was just so busy, and so I didn't mark hardly any books in September as to read, so I decided to combine my August and September to read videos together. Because I wasn't filming videos, and so it just made sense to cram it all into one video. So let's jump in and talk about all of the books that I marked as to read in August and September. We will start with August, of course. In the month of August, I marked a total of 13 books as to read. The first of those is The Party by Elizabeth Day. This is a book that Olive did a great tipsy review on, and she just made it sound so interesting. And this is, I believe, a literary fiction, and I don't know too much about what it's about, but from what I can gather, it's about two couples, I believe, and how their lives kind of intersect. Like, they're friends, but there's like more underlying things going on in their like friendships together, from what I understand. And it just sounds really interesting, and a book Olive made it sound like a really good time, so I am eventually hopefully going to read this book. Next, I have 3 books that Lisa from over at Books and Smiles mentioned in one of her wrap-up videos. That's right, 3, because Lisa is the best. The first of those is The Marriage Pact by Michelle Richmond. This is a thriller novel, I believe, and it sounds really interesting. It's about a couple who enter into this thing called the Pact. It's like this group thing that has this set of rules that you live your like marriage by, that like will keep your marriage perfect and intact and all of these things. And they join this like club, and it's really secret. Like, you're not allowed to tell anyone that you're in the pact, kind of like Fight Club. I'm sure it's not anything like Fight Club, but you know what I mean. And so they are in this like group, and then they discover that maybe everything is not as it seems, and it just sounds really like a really interesting premise. And yeah, so I decided that I wanted to read that one. Next from Lisa was Where I Lost Her by T. Greenwood. So this is again a thriller novel, and it's about a woman who has had lots of issues for like years and years, I believe, with fertility, and like she really wants a baby, but she hasn't been able to conceive and things like that. And one day she's, I think, staying with friends, and she's driving down this like rural road, and she sees a little girl standing next to the woods. And so she gets out of her car to go help this girl, and the girl takes off, like she's scared, and she goes running off into the woods. And I think she tries to find her, but she can't find her, and so she gets back into her car, and she goes back to the party, and they call the police, and everyone's out searching for this little girl, and there's no sign whatsoever of this little girl. There's no little girl that's been reported missing. And so it starts to call into question, I think, whether this woman actually saw this little girl, whether she's starting to maybe lose her mind a little bit because of everything going on with her fertility issues and how much she wants a child. And now she's seeing this little girl, but she knows that she saw this little girl, and it just, again, sounds really interesting and like something I would enjoy. The final book that I heard about from Lisa is Yellow Crocus by Layla Ibrahim. This sounds really interesting. I believe this is more of a literary novel about a girl who is raised, like I think in the deep south, like on a plantation, by a black like wet nurse, and she's raised, and she's got a lot of love for this woman who's basically raised her. And I think it's about their lives and how, you know, she loves this woman, but she is enslaved, like it's a black slave basically who raised her, and how that plays into, I think, their relationship. And then I think maybe something happens with some kind of big drastic violent event, and I'm not sure what goes on there, but it just sounded really interesting. And Lisa had, I think, great things to say about this, if I recall. So yeah, this is definitely one I want to check out at some point. Next we have Bad Romance by Heather Demetrios. This is a book that's been getting a little bit of buzz. This is a YA novel about an abusive, and I believe mainly emotionally abusive relationship. The main 2 people who I've heard give really good reviews of are Trina from Between Chapters and Vanessa over at Paper Fairy. They've both had really good things to say about it. This is a topic that I'm very interested in, so it's definitely a book that I've been wanting to check out, and the cover is gorgeous. Next, I want to talk about Checkmate by Kennedy Fox. This is one that I saw Stories for Coffee did an unboxing, like from the author, and it just kind of intrigued me. This is a new adult novel. I think it's a hate to love story about a girl who I think falls in love with her older brother's best friend, which is kind of tropey, but that's a trope that I love. The older brother's best friend thing, for some reason, really appeals to me. I don't know why. I don't have an older brother, so it's not like I was secretly in love with my older brother's friends like growing up, because I didn't have an older brother, but for some reason that kind of storyline, it's the same type of thing I think it plays into like the bodyguard type thing, because I really enjoy that trope as well. But yeah, it sounds really tropey, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Next we have Remember Me Like This by Brett Anthony Johnston. This is one that Catchphase actually recommended to me. Catchphase is one of my subscribers, so thank you. Recommended to me on my July marked as to read video. This is a story about someone who like went missing when they were a young child, I believe, and it's years and years later, and they return. They are found like in, I think, a neighboring town, and they return, and then I think it's kind of about how life plays out now that they've returned. That I think once the child returns, it shows all the deep rifts that have kind of like have happened in the family since this child's disappearance. I'm really into books like that, so hopefully this is one that I enjoy. Next we have White Bodies by Jane Robbins. This is one that I actually saw on Instagram. Someone that I follow on Instagram, Crime by the Book, did like an Instagram story about this book, and it just sounded really, really interesting, and it had a few of my buzzwords. So it's a psychological thriller, which is basically my favorite genre, and it does involve twins, which is a massive buzzword for me. And I believe this is about, there are two twin sisters, and one of them, I think, is in a like kind of an abusive marriage, and the other sister is kind of looking on, you know, worried about her sister and all of those things, and it gets really like dark and twisted, and I'm not exactly sure like what happens, but it just sounded really, really interesting. It's a psychological thriller, and it had twins, and that was basically enough for me to want to read it. Next we have Welcome to the Dark House by Laurie Faria Stollars. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is one that I saw Vanessa, again from over at Paper Fairy, talking about, and I don't really know anything about what this is actually about, except that she likened it to a like teen like scary movie in YA book form. That was basically enough for me to go, yeah, I want to read it. Next we have Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susanna Cahalan. This is a book that I've wanted to read for a really long time, and I just realized in the month of August, that I'd never marked it as to read, so I rectified that situation. This is a non-fiction memoir, I believe, about Susanna, and one day she woke up strapped to a hospital bed and she couldn't move or speak, and it's about kind of what happened to her and what occurred, and this gets a lot of good reviews from people, and it just sounds really, really interesting, and it's one I've been wanting to read for a long time. Next we have The Dry by Jane Harper. This is one that I've just kind of been seeing around on BookTube, and it is a thriller novel, I believe, about a murder of like a whole family in a small town, like a whole family. I don't know if they're murdered or if that at first appears to be a murder-suicide situation, but then they think maybe that it was a murder. I'm not really sure, but I just heard really interesting things about it. It sounded really interesting, and if you've seen my September book haul, then you know I actually purchased this book in September. So yeah, it's definitely one that I want to read. Next I have Blood Rose by Danielle Rose. This is a book that I saw Ben from over at Benjamin of Tomes talking about, and it just sounded kind of interesting. I believe it's about a girl named Ava who is a witch, a spirit witch, I think, and it involves vampires as well. So basically a book that involves both vampires and witches is something that sounds really intriguing to me, and it just sounded like a lot of fun. Next we have The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter. This is one that I saw Books and Lala talking about, but Karen Slaughter is an author that I've always been really interested in. I've never read anything by her. I do own another one of her books, which the title of is escaping me. I'll put it on the screen if I can find it. I'm sure I can find it because I own the book. And this is, I think, her most recent release, and it is a thriller novel, which is basically what Karen Slaughter writes, and it is about, I think, two sisters, and their mother is murdered, and they are forced, I think, at gunpoint into the woods, and one of them runs and the other one stays, and I think the one who runs, it's like years and years later, like 28 years later, I think, and she's living like a really successful life. I think she's an attorney, and she is brought into this case that has a lot of reminders and stuff about what happened to her as a child, and I think we're probably going to be dealing with like kind of both mysteries. Sounds right up my alley. I've heard good things about Karen Slaughter, and this is a book that I just really want to read. So those were the books that I marked as to read in August. Now we have three, that's right, only 3 books that I marked as to read in the month of September. The first of those is Little Monsters by Cara Thomas. This is one that I've seen a little bit on BookTube, and the main person I saw talking about it was, it's Jane Lindsay, did a review of it like in her wrap-up, and it just sounds right up my alley. It's a young adult thriller, I think, about a girl who, I think she moves to a new town, and she befriends these 2 girls who I think she's immediately kind of drawn into their circle, and they're all really close and have this immediate friendship. and then something goes wrong and she's not sure what's happened, but they're kind of shunning her all of a sudden, and then she's not invited to like this big party that's going on, and then she never finds out why she didn't get invited to this party or like what is going on, because one of the girls that she was friends with dies at the party. I presume is probably murdered, and I don't really know what happens from there, but that premise is right up my alley. I love YA like thrillers, like YA thriller / dark contemporary, totally my jam. So yeah, I definitely want to read this one. Next we have Black Eyed Susans by Julie Haberlin. This is one that Eleanor from over at Eleanor Reads Books did a review of during her time when she was doing like a week of videos about thriller books, and this is one of the ones that she talked about. And this is about a girl who was the victim of a serial killer, but like she survived, but he was a serial killer, and her testimony put a man like in jail, and I think it's years and years later, and she's been questioning for some time and is still questioning whether what she initially believed is true and whether the right man was imprisoned. Again, that's a storyline that just sounds really like a good time to me. I love me some twisted thrillers, so yeah, definitely one I want to pick up. And the final book that I want to talk about is Freshers by Tom Ellen and Lucy Iverson. This is one that I've seen Maddie and B over at Heartful of Books talk about a lot, and I believe this is a young adult, but like older young adult / like new adult, about a group of friends, I think, in the first couple of months of college / university. That's all I know about it, but it sounds like a good time. They've had really good things to say about it, and it just sounds like a really like interesting, fun, like YA / new adult contemporary. So those are all of the books that I marked as to read in the months of August and September. I would love to chat in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you have any thoughts or any books that you've been getting really excited about in the last couple of months. I love marking books as to read, as you know. I will, as always, have all of the books linked down below, as well as all of the booktubers, and I'll put that Instagram down below as well from people who I got recommendations for, so that you can check out their channels if you haven't already. Please comment. As I said, I'd love to chat in the comments down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye, guys.